Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Busting Through Life Challenges with me, Diane Parker. Today's guest is Dan, who helps men make life happen. Dan's a coach, and he's been working extremely hard on himself and now helps assist men in making changes in their life. Thanks so much for coming, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Di. Appreciate it.
So tell us how you got into coaching. What was your passion behind you doing coaching in the first place, taking it on as a career?
Well, that's an interesting story, but the short of it is that for years, from the time I was like in my early 20s, I have wanted to work with men. I'm not sure where that passion comes from, but just because I see the potential in men, because men, and at the risk of sounding chauvinistic, because I believe this about women too, but men just really, in roles of leadership in their families, in the community themselves, can really make some great things happen. One of the things that I say is when a man gets it right, everybody wins, because it impacts so many people. And so I've wanted for a long time to work with men. I have a degree in counseling, and my favorite clients were when I'd have a man come in and get to work with him. And I pastored a couple of churches, and I knew that wasn't my life calling. That was a position that I filled at the time because I had the gifts and the skills and the ability to do it. And I did it well, but I knew that that's not what I was called to do with my life. And it got to a point where I began to think, this isn't fulfilling for me. And knowing myself, if I continued, everyone else would know it too, because I wear my emotions right here. If you want to know how I feel, just look at me. I've had people say, can't you just fake it until you? No, I can't. It doesn't work that way for me. And I had a friend at that time say, well, have you ever thought about life coaching? I didn't even know what that was. So I began to look into it, and I discovered that, wow, this is something that really appeals to me. This is something that really, I can have an impact. I can help people, which is what I want to do. And because it would be my own business, I can help men. That's what I want to do. And so I got some training, and here I am, and I love it.
Well, it's so important what you're doing, because men need to start finding a voice and talking and expressing their feelings. And I think as much as women can do that part, it's so much easier to talk with a man. So you've got that, you're both men and you're able to start that conversation off. I found that some men take a little bit of it's a bit like tickling trout, getting them on board with you before they'll start offloading. And then generally once they get going, they're absolutely fine. But it's getting across that bridge a bit quicker that they're going to find working with somebody like yourself.
It's a matter of creating a space that is safe for them to do that.
Yeah.
For them to understand that it's a no judgment zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I am in touch with how I feel, and I'm here to help draw that out of you. And once they understand that that's created and they work with me a little while, usually barriers come down and some real work can be done.
So when you go and you're doing the deep diving with people, can you give us some indication of what that looks like, so that if somebody's listening to this recording, they'll be able to understand how you can help them?
Many times the thing that draws clients to me is, first of all, they hear my heart in the things that I write and I say on social media and what have you. But I tend to challenge men to think about their life. Are they living a life that is fulfilling to them? Does it bring them joy? Do they know what their values are? And by that, I don't mean, right and wrong. I mean, what's important to you? What do you have to have in life to feel happy and fulfilled? Are you honoring those values? Does your life reflect that? Or are you so busy with work and coaching Little League and taking care of the parents as they age, and doing this and doing that, and climbing the work ladder, and that you're do it all for you, daddy, and doing and being all things for all people and nothing for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That stress, that pressure that they put on themselves.
Yeah. And the thing with men is we often do that stuff because we feel obligated to. That's what a man does. And then to actually stop and say, I've got to create some margin. I'm not doing anything for myself. I'm not pursuing hobbies. I don't have friends. I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I don't have any energy or excitement for the next morning. To stop and begin to make some changes to realign your life feels selfish.
Yeah.
And it feels, and a lot of guys can feel guilty because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So my challenge when I work with a man is to help them, first of all, realize that it's not selfish.
Yeah.
But you have to do this. You have to make these changes. If you try to make these changes just because, you're going to get pushback, and then you're going to give in. Mm-hmm. You're going to give your power away, and you're going to give in, and things are never going to change. But it starts from a place of learning to value yourself, value what's important to you. And basically what that looks like is learning to love yourself.
Absolutely.
To say, I love myself. This is not the life that brings me fulfillment. I can make these changes and still fulfill my obligations, still love my wife and kids, still work a job. But I love myself. And because of that, I need to realign some things. And again, that sounds selfish. Listen, it's not. Because you cannot love others well. You can't love your wife, your kids. You can't love your friends. You can't be even a good, compassionate, hardworking employee if you don't first love yourself. You cannot pour into someone else's cup if your pitcher is empty.
Absolutely.
So
bucket, I call it.
So yeah. So learning to love yourself then gives you the ability to love others well, doing what is best and right for you, aligning your life with your purpose, with your values, with your vision. That's going to trickle down to everyone else, and their lives are going to be better. Our culture has taught us that, that it's backwards, that we have to think of others first, that we have to, that men, well, that's just what men do. And it's not healthy.
It's not.
It's not healthy.
Don't get me started on comparing.
Right.
Well, you know me, I'll go off on a tangent with comparing. That's so important for men to actually have those conversations with you guys. Again, this male to male, I think, to me, is the biggest gift that you've got to give men, Dan, and reaching out with your own experiences, because I know as coaches that we, when we're putting our material out there, we are putting ourselves out there, and people will read through all of that and the experiences that you've had and what you share, not, just to let them know that, you've been there, you've done there and got the t-shirt, that kind of phrase, isn't it? What advice would you give to anybody that's listening now if they thought, do you know something, I need to reach out and talk to somebody like you, but they don't know how to start that conversation off?
Nuts and bolts of it is actually very easy. You just go to my social media or whatever, and you just say, hey, I'd like to talk. I mean, that's the easy part. The hard part is what comes before that. Dealing with the saboteurs and the voices in your head that say, no, you're going to look like a fool. No, he's going to think you're stupid. Your problems aren't that bad. No, you're just going to mess your life up. No, you don't need to. And it's these voices that are going to tell you, don't do it. Your heart is saying, please talk to this guy. And the voices in your head are saying, you're going to be a fool if you do. That's the hard part, is ignoring those voices and leaning in, standing in your power. Everyone, male and female, has power and strength. And so many times we give it away. But by leaning into the uncomfortable, by doing the uncomfortable thing, leaning in and saying, I know what's going on in my head. I'm going to do it anyway. That is taking back your power. That is standing in your strength. And when you do that, then, oh, okay, I did it. I can feel good about myself. This is going to be good.
And what happened
Listen,
to you when you stood into that power and that uncomfortable action? Because I know that you have, you know, you've stood into it. What things managed to manifest for you in your life?
how much time do we have?
As long as you want, honey.
Oh, Di, you and I know each other from previous conversations and things like that. But for your listeners, I would just say I am not the same man that I was a year ago. I'm not the same man I was even 3 months ago. Because I finally got to the point in my own life where I felt like, do it all for you, daddy. I was doing and being what everyone else needed, wanted, and expected me to do and be. And I had a moment where the light bulb went off and I thought, I don't even know who I am anymore. I have completely lost my identity. I don't know myself. And I started on a journey of I have to get myself back. I can't live like this. This is killing me. I'm unhappy. This is unfulfilling. It cannot continue. And it was in that moment that I began to take little steps. I mean, it wasn't a giant leap. It was little steps of learning to value myself, working with other coaches, learning to love myself, learning to believe that I have worth and value, believing that I deserve to stand up for myself, that my feelings and my voice matter, that what's important to me matters, and began to slowly lean into the uncomfortable, difficult, challenging work. Don't listen. Nobody better have the wool pulled over their eyes to think this is easy.
Mm.
It's
And
not.
it's those little subtle differences that make a big impact, though, isn't it?
Huge
A bit like
impact.
dropping that pebble into a pond and just watching those ripples going out to the side.
Because you take one tiny little step toward your own healing and wholeness, one little step. And guess what? The next step you take doesn't start down here. The next step you take starts here.
Yeah.
And the next step, and before long, look at how far you've come.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just the little process of being willing to be uncomfortable. That is the problem. We want to be comfortable so much. And that's when we give up our power, when we choose comfort over growth.
And most people, they believe that it's to change is uncomfortable, but change is our only thing that's constant. No matter what, change is always happening. And it's just our resistance to that makes this even harder, doesn't it? But I think as coaches, we know we need to lean in on those times to work through things.
In our heads, I think it's just human nature.
Yeah.
I mean, having worked in churches and with groups of people, the natural inclination is to see or hear some kind of change that wants to be implemented, whether you're in a business setting or a church or an educational setting. Oh, we're going to make these changes. Automatically, our minds assume the worst. And I think that's a throwback to our ancient ancestors where everything was bad. Yeah. And we automatically assume the worst.
Yeah.
What if it's actually better?
Absolutely.
What if it's actually a good thing?
Yeah.
What if it could actually mean life and joy and health and happiness and fulfillment?
Yeah.
Give yourself the opportunity.
Yeah. The difference between reacting and responding to things too as we go through life.
Oh, yeah.
Take
Absolutely.
that breath.
Yeah. Learning that we have a choice.
Yeah.
We always have choices. We may not like them. They may be hard. We may not like our choices, but you have choices.
Yeah.
You can choose to lean in and stand in your strength and do some hard work to realign your life and find fulfillment. Or you can choose status quo, but you know what you're going to get. The same thing you've always got.
Yeah.
I guess what I would say is because I have, and your listeners will just have to take my word for it, because I have done what for me is an incredible amount of hard work in my life, even as recently as the past month, doing some deep dives and really digging into some stuff and having to wrestle with it. And because I've done that hard work, I have, first of all, found such a love for myself.
And I've seen
I
those
like,
changes. I've seen those
I,
changes.
I love myself. I like who I am.
Yeah.
And because of that, I then can turn around and love other people. I can have compassion for other people. I don't have to know them.
Mm.
But when a person comes to work with me, they're going to sense compassion and love. I am going to stand for my client when they can't stand for themselves. They don't believe in themselves. That's okay. I do.
Yeah.
And we'll get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody would like to check you out, Dan, I know you've got a Facebook group, haven't you?
Yes, I do have a Facebook
What's
group.
that called? Remind me.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not super active on it, but I do have a professional Facebook page, Dan Ferren Coaching LLC. You can find me there. I am on LinkedIn under Dan Ferren.
Mm-hmm.
I also have an Instagram, Dan Ferren. It's a professional page there. So there's 3 ways that you can get a hold of me.
So before we wrap up, I'd like to know a little bit about your groups that you've started off, because they seem to be really impactful for an awful lot of men.
I have a group. Yeah. It's an in-person group. I call it I live in just north of Indianapolis, Indiana in the US. And I call it the Indie Men's Meetup.
Nice.
And I put it on LinkedIn for any of my connections in the Indianapolis area. And we meet at a bank in their conference room once a month. And we spend the first half hour doing a meet and greet. I usually ask some specific kind of questions, deeper questions, so people can get to know each other a little better. And then the last hour, I lead a conversation that's important to men. We've talked about anger, dealing with anger. We've talked about values. We've talked about, just all sorts of stuff. And these guys, some of them know each other, but then some of them have never met each other before, and they just open up and the conversation goes 3 miles deep. And it is the most refreshing thing, because these guys come with the expectation that I want to grow. I want to be with other men, and I want to grow, and I want to be deeper. And it has just been, these guys love these meetings. They look forward to them. And I do too. It just excites me to see men really opening up and talking deeply and really thinking hard things about life. And it's just been a lot of fun. As a matter of fact, I have one of those meetings tonight.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about, or have you got plans to take that aspect online, doing it through Zoom meetings, so you can reach a wider audience?
I have not, but now I am. That's interesting. So it's not necessarily coaching that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Although the possibility is there if it comes up. It's not necessarily coaching that I'm doing, but it's an opportunity to really just be challenged and grow deeper and think deeper thoughts. That's a great idea. That's a really great idea.
Challenging yourself now.
No,
that's good. That's kind of like, for those listening, is what Dan and I do. We're in our own little pod, and we push and coach each other every now and then. But that's just come out of this conversation, and that's what happens, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just would say, first of all, I love coaching. I love watching my clients grow and have these light bulb moments and understand themselves and move forward in their life. And I want to just call out the men and say, I understand the apprehension. I understand the stories in your head. You may think you don't need it. You may think, oh, my problem's not that big. You may think, I feel like a fool. Any number of things. Listen, I'm going to call you out on all of those. That's BS. Mm-hmm. That's nonsense. Your problem isn't too small, nor is it too big. Your life is worth finding some fulfillment. You may love your job. Could it be better? You may love your life. Could Could it be better?
Yeah.
How are you going to leave a legacy and an impact? Boy, men, think about that. How is my life going to matter? Well, that's a good question. How are you going to leave an impact?
I know that mattered for my late husband. How was he going to be reflected after he passed? So,
and that's one of the things that I work on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've kind of picked up that banner though, and I'm still going with it for him.
Sure. Yeah. If people want to sort of get a better idea of who I am, obviously go to the social media sites and read my stuff and listen to what I put there. But also, I periodically have free workshops around different topics. I have one coming up in October. There will be information on my social media about that. They are free. It's an opportunity to get some good, valuable information, and then experience a little bit of coaching too. So that's something that's coming up that they can join in.
That's great. Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Dan. I know you're very busy.
Thank you, Di.
And so if anybody would like to get in touch with Dan, he's advised you to have a look at social media. Is there a direct email or anything like that you've got for your business?
Sure. We can put it in the notes.
We can. Yeah. Okay. So I'll pop that below this post. And if anybody has any issues around grief and loss, give me a call. But for today, thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Di. Appreciate it.
Bye now.